Favorite time of year.
Well, in Florida, it is awfully hot here. So I think we've faced some 100-degree weather. Some of you might be feeling that heat wave too. Okay, so it looks like things have slowed down. I want to welcome you formally to our Abortion Healing Provider webinar sponsored by Support After Abortion. My name is Lisa Rowe, and I have the privilege of serving as the CEO for Support After Abortion. I'm also a trained licensed clinical social worker, therapist, and I'm here with many of my team members. I'm going to introduce Kylie because she will be playing a large part in our conversation today. She and my team are going to be responding to in chat and helping us do our question and answers. So without further ado, last month I had the privilege and honor of speaking with you with my colleague Karen Barbie.
And this, what the heck?
And we had the beautiful opportunity of hearing from you, and several of your questions inspired today's conversation.
No, my speakers aren't working.
All right, we're taking care of making sure she's muted. I apologize for that. Continuing on, we were inspired by some of the questions that you had towards the end of our conversation. And one in particular really inspired me. And you may recall it was from a woman who felt like she was operating in her space, serving people who had experienced abortion, really from a spiritual angle. And she wanted to know when she should kind of be mindful that she's outside of her scope of practice. And it was with like 5 minutes left, and it just stuck with us after we left, and really just thinking, you know, who answers that question? How do we protect ourselves from that? And what is a best practice? And so we're here today to talk about that. We have cultivated since last webinar a list of ethics that we've been practicing, but we never put the pen to the paper. And so we actually have a document that for the first time ever, we're going to be sharing with you today. It'll likely have some different edits along the way, but it's a starting point for us. And what I really want to start with before we share it with you is that most every other profession, most every other industry has a code of ethics that they stand by. Everywhere from business to our faith to clinical therapy, we have a code of ethics that we usually sign off of, likely have to take a course to graduate college, perhaps take this course to be hired by your employer. And so we felt like abortion healing needs the same kind of code of ethics. And so we're really proud of this. And we really feel like at Support After Abortion, it's our mission to bring this to you so that you can bring it to those that you are touching. So without further ado, Kylie's going to share it. It's only so that you can see what it is. She's going to share her screen, and then she's also going to put a link to the document in our chat feature at the bottom of your screen. So here it is. We're not going to leave it up because I want to just kind of have a conversation with you today. But this is the document that we'll be referencing today as we talk with each other. And she's just scrolling through for us to really get a view of what it is here. Okay, so she's also putting the link in the chat feature. Thank you, Kylie. And again, we're going to be giving this to you. If you are watching in a recorded version, this will be, we'll also provide the link to you. This will stay on our website in our tools section, and Kylie will review all of this at the end with you. So we can stop sharing our screen, Kylie. Thank you so much. Okay, and so we're going to run our conversation a little bit different today. We have broken up the ethics in 4 different sections, and I'm going to kind of give you an overview of how they're broken up. And then after each section, maybe we can make this more of a classroom kind of setting where we stop, we pause, we have a conversation about it. Kylie might bring some points that she wants clarified to the conversation based on what she's seen in chat, and we'll continue the conversation. So at Support After Abortion, we have 4 core values, and they represent the acronym HOPE, or the word hope. And so the H stands for healing, the O stands for ownership, the P stands for purpose, and E stands for excellence. We hire off of these core values. We evaluate off of these core values. We often train off of these core values. These are the principles in which we are founded on. And so we decided to break up our ethics based on those 4 categories as well. So we're going to start today with the healing component, and we're going to talk about 3 core ethics that we feel should be present in yourself, in the environment at which you're serving, and in the people that you're bringing on board to help you with the healing. Again, you're going to get this document, but take notes, because I'm not going to kind of just read it and go on. I'm going to explain it from our perspective, but I will read it first. So the first bullet point is commit to
Only with this
excellence.
specific Zoom group. It's clear.
Thank you. Okay, so the first bullet is we're going to commit to excellence through continued personal, professional, and ethical development. Directly to the point that I made earlier from the woman that asked the question last webinar. It is so important that if we are walking alongside people who are interested in healing, that we maintain an interest in our own healing. We say at Support After Abortion, healing is a journey, not a destination. And so we want to make sure that in our code of ethics as abortion healing providers, that we are maintaining the same expectation that we are expecting of the clients that we're serving. This could look like a coaching program. This could look like a college class. This could look like a abortion healing class that you're, maybe observing. This could be a spiritual healing class, a Bible study that you might be in. This could be a number of things that I didn't even touch on, that you are continuing your own development, your own growth journey, so that you can continue to offer something to yourself as you're on this journey. So that's the first ethics that we are asking all abortion healing providers to maintain. The second bullet point is, we have always said this, but we felt like it needed to be in our code of ethics, is we want to make sure that we are always meeting clients where they are. So we want to check our motivation in engaging clients. And for some of you, this might be a little tingly or might be a little touchy. So let me explain. Oftentimes, some of us are coming from a faith perspective. And sometimes, if we really look at our experience, sometimes there's an agenda behind that faith experience when meeting clients. And so it is our challenge to you through our code of ethics that you meet that client right where they are without an agenda. And so we check that motivation at the door. We might not be able to pray with that client that same day. We might not be able to present the gospel message that same day. We might need to make sure that we're building relationship first before we enter into any faith conversations. We want to remain curious as to the indications that might keep a client engaged or not in the healing relationship. So we want to pay attention at all times to somebody's behavior in group, to somebody's behavior through text message, if they're not showing up to group, if they are. Some of us, our humanity has a tendency to ignore the uncomfortable, and we won't talk to our clients about those things. And oftentimes our clients are waiting for us to say, hey, what's going on? Why haven't you been to group in 2 days or 2 sessions? Or, I noticed that you're very preoccupied while in session. Can we talk about it after group today? Whatever that might be, we want you to remain curious about those indicators so that you're not ignoring them or brushing them under the rug. Okay. And this will then allow you permission to change the relationship or encourage a different relationship to start. And so we want to make sure that as part of the code of ethics for healing, that we are open to what our client is trying to tell us, and that we don't always walk with this, I've got all the answers kind of mentality. I'm the only person that can help them. If we do that, we're going to severely hurt the clients in which we're serving, and we will be walking outside of our scope and practice. Okay. And then the last code of ethic underneath healing is that we want to use best practices when conducting a group. And so when you're engaging a client or a participant, when you're screening them, when you have ground rules in group, we want to make sure that we are being held to a standard that creates safety and structure and consistency for clients. And so this is going to be the bar that we set, that if we say we're doing an 8-week group and the ground rule is that we don't talk over each other, we're going to keep to 8 weeks and we're going to not talk over each other. And you as the facilitator are responsible for making sure that that doesn't happen. Now, I know things happen, internet crashes, these sort of things. If we need an extra week, what we want to do is go back to the group and say, we've had some issues, or you guys have been great communicators. Do you mind if we add an additional group? But only if the group agrees will we go outside of the scope and practice of what the client signed up for. So I'm going to pause there. And I know this is a lot to digest. This is not meant for you to memorize. Of course, we're giving you this document, but here it is, like a framework for us to really begin our practices. Many of you that already are practicing within this framework, but now it's written down for you, and perhaps you can adopt some of these for yourself. So Kylie, go ahead and if you want to ask your first clarifying question, then we can open it up to everyone.
Yeah, so Lisa, we would like to dig in a little deeper on checking your motivation. Can you give some examples on what that process would look like, and what are some examples of some unhealthy motivations?
Oh, great question, Kylie. So, oftentimes as I'm leading abortion healing groups, we have clients that reach the end of their abortion healing curriculum, the first group that they've ever been through, and they are feeling so much relief. They're feeling so ignited, and they're like, who can I help? I want somebody else to feel this as well. And it's a beautiful thing that happens in our hearts. Their motivation, for example, that particular experience, I would want to pause, and we always do, and we would begin to journey through what is going on inside of them, and are they truly ready to lead others, or is this really just the inspiration for maybe a year-long journey of continuing their own healing until they walk with others? And so we want to make sure where's that motivation coming from. If it's this newly inspired gift that they have inside of them, that's beautiful. We want to nourish it, but we also want to protect the clients that they're going to see next. Another motivation is that, I do this curriculum. I had the author come speak to our group. This is it. And this is the only curriculum that I'm going to do because I've met the author and I've done this. And while all the authors of abortion healing are amazing, what happens if we find ourselves married to a curriculum like that is that we're not hearing from our clients. And so we're motivated by the curriculum or the inspiration that we had from the author, and not what our clients are sharing with us, which actually creates a blind spot, because therein lies an opportunity for us to hear from a client, but we can't hear because we're motivated by something different. So we want to stay pure to those motives. I think that's like the extremes, but there again, we want to stop, we want to pause, and we say, what is your motive for wanting to lead people through healing, specifically abortion healing? Is it to actually help them journey through the crisis of their abortion experience? Is it to help them find the freedom they're looking for? Those are all beautiful motives. If something falls outside of that, then I want you to stop and pause and question, well, what is that? And if it's not reflective of the client's need, we want to understand what that is and what's going on inside of us. Kylie, you're muted.
2 follow-up questions come up for me listening to you dialogue about this. Can you give examples of what a seasoned facilitator might need to check in their spirit about motivation issues that are unhealthy?
Oh, great question. You might be motivated like, oh, we finally have this wait list. And I don't have any other facilitators. So now I'm motivated because I don't have anybody else. I have this list, and now I'm going to be leading this group. That's one of the areas that we don't want to ever lead out of a have to. We want to lead out of a get to motive. Another seasoned facilitator might be feeling sad in their journey for whatever reason and not feeling needed, perhaps entering retirement or whatnot. And we'd never want to lead out of our own need to be needed. That then falls in in line with codependency. And we talk about that a lot in this space, that helpers can only help people when they're helping themselves first.
You did a great job of talking about the big picture of your motivation when it comes to abortion healing and checking why you're in this space first and foremost. Can you do a dig deeper to follow up on individuals? You know, what I'm thinking of in particular is that you meet an individual who triggers you in a particular way. Their story may be similar to yours, or perhaps it reminds you of somebody that's very dear to you. Can you talk about how perhaps your big why, your big motivation is in check, but sometimes individuals might trigger your motivation to become unhealthy?
Oh, absolutely. And we talk about this. This is countertransference in our space. It is part of who we are as humans. When you're doing life with humans, count on being in the presence of people who mirror back to you the things that are inside of you that still are being healed. So if you hold up a mirror, sometimes there's people that reflect back to you those things that are still icky, sticky inside of you. And so, Kylie, I think what your question is that your pure motive might be, I want to help people, but while in group, as you're unpacking their stories and they're reflecting back to you, perhaps you're seeing yourself in some of their decisions, your earlier self in some of their decisions, you're going to want to make sure to keep that in check. The way I do that is every week we have clinical supervision. I meet with a team of growing professionals and we talk. Our team does this monthly. We meet as a group. We have our check-in about our core values, our highs and lows, and we have a topic where these kinds of things are discussed. You might have a mentor, a spiritual director, but when you feel that, and we all have the ability to have intuition or discernment or connection to ourselves, when you feel that something doesn't feel right, it usually isn't right. And you want to get it outside of you with somebody that's more experienced than you in order to discuss what it is. It's likely a trigger. Like I said, they're reflecting back to you something that maybe yet you haven't worked on, or something that's really close to home for you. And you want to keep that in check, because if you lose objectivity with that client or that group of participants, you're going to lose the ability to stay ethically inclined with that group or that individual.
A question that comes up often, Lisa, when we're talking about meeting clients where they're at. As a Catholic, when I encounter somebody who is not in a place to hear about our Lord, how do I recognize the signs when they may be ready for that conversation in a healthy way?
You know, my favorite thing is to trust that our participants and clients know exactly what is going on inside of them. So we just need to ask, you know, we have this type of curriculum. Would you like this type of curriculum or this type of curriculum? This is my faith practice, and I'd love to share with you more about it. Is that of interest to you? Ask instead of leading with an assumption that we know exactly where they are. Typically, our clients know exactly what they want to talk about and what they need. They just need to be asked.
Perfect. All right. You're off the hook on the ownership.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. By thumbs up, reactions, this sort of thing. Are we finding this topic meaningful? At the bottom of your screen, there's reactions. If you want to just give me some encouragement here, I know I'm doing a lot of lecturing here. Great. We're really thrilled, again, to bring this to you so that you can bring this back. Oftentimes, this is a flow of our heart and we don't have structure. So in order to keep cementing what we're doing as abortion healing providers and elevating who we are and the need for healing, we want to keep bringing things like this to our infrastructure. Okay, so on to ownership. It's maybe not as explanatory as healing is. At Support After Abortion, ownership is one of our core values, because we believe that if you are in your space owning your stuff and I'm in my space owning my stuff, together we are better. And so this might look like in a conflict resolution kind of situation. I own my side, you own your side of the street, and together we can find mutual ground. You own that you are really good in the admin space, and the other person owns that they're good in the financial space, and together you are better. And so we really believe that when we own ourselves, our journeys, our experiences, the team is better. And so we're going to really pour into you from an ethical place in regards to that value. And so there's 2 bullets. The first one is we want to recognize the personal limitations or circumstances that may impair, conflict, or interfere in the healing relationship. I want to stop here because this is a big one. If you find yourself struggling to match a client who has had 4 children removed from them and has had 3 abortion experiences and now is considering abortion with her current pregnancy, if you're triggered by that, if there is something inside of you that story does not connect with you, don't push yourself into that. There is somebody more qualified, more in line with working with that client than you. And so we never want to walk into a situation where you feel limited in understanding that person, or you don't feel that you can really truly walk alongside of them. Anything that would interfere with that relationship, we want to have ownership over, okay? Maybe this client has reported suicidal ideation and symptoms of depression. If you are a peer leader and you don't feel like that's a space that you have experience with, refer out. Don't try to push the suicide and depression symptoms to the side and focus solely on the abortion healing experience. We are interconnected, and that will completely derail your experience with them. And perhaps you might even make the situation worse, trying to be something that you're really not supposed to be in that situation. We really want to stay committed to reaching out for support to people that will help drive the next step for us if we can't see it. Maybe it's a peer in your space. Maybe it's a professional in this space. Going back to the suicidal ideation and the depression, I encourage everyone on this call to have a team of professionals around them, whether they're advisory members, whether they're just there for a phone call, but someone who is credentialed in that space that can help guide and answer a phone call or a text message from you if you have a question. It might even mean ethically that you suspend any future healing experiences with that client because you don't feel like you can own the space that client needs you to own, which there again is the need for that resource list. I don't think anybody should be entering into abortion healing space without a list of resources. I think we've talked about different roots and different vulnerabilities that lead to abortion experiences. There's many, and sometimes it's sexual abuse. And so if a client exposes sexual abuse and perhaps you're the first time that they've ever spoken to it, where are you going next with that client? If you don't have a referral list or a resource list or the capability to find somebody, that to me is an ethical issue. So we never want to bring somebody to a place and then just abandon them there. So we need to make sure that we're walking in an ownership mindset that you are in charge of a very, very serious relationship. And if you feel like you cannot continue to facilitate that relationship, that you know what to do with that. Second one, resolve any conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest by working through issues with relevant parties. We want you to seek, there again, that personal and peer or professional and peer support. And there again, make sure that you are willing to suspend a relationship if necessary. This includes political and religious perspectives that would hinder you from providing the type of care that the client prefers. So some of us meet clients at church, others meet clients in, speaking situations, at conferences, all sorts of places. And we want to make sure that we're very clear. We're moving from the pregnancy center operator to an abortion healing provider. And we want to make sure that people understand, the people we're serving, that things shift under those different hats. Perhaps that you get a phone call from a friend. Can you talk to this person for me? And you get on the phone and you realize, this is not a good call. Make sure that you name that and you are ethically holding yourself accountable, that you don't want to open something up with somebody that you don't feel like you can continue the journey on. Okay, so those are the two ownership ethics. And Kylie, if you want to come back on, we can process out loud.
Yeah, so you mentioned that no one should enter into abortion healing without resources and referrals in place. So can you discuss further, how can we form those relationships and how can we vet them to know that they are going to care for our clients well?
Absolutely. Many of you are inside communities that carry social service work. We have a social service agency that meets monthly here in our community. I've been a part of it for a long time. Very different people from all walks of the service industry come to that meeting. And once a month, somebody new presents about what services they're providing. It's a great networking opportunity. Every single one of us should be finding spaces and places like that to engage ourselves. I once heard a woman in our industry say that abortion is a social service issue. And if we're not going into the social service spaces, we're not going to be finding those clients that need our support. And so that first question that Kylie asked is, how do you build that list? You start looking for these folks. You start networking with them. It's likely that your clients have received services from a lot of these folks already. And by asking your clients, what was that like for you? And they'll tell you, oh my gosh, my caseworker in this office was amazing, or the parenting educator over here was great, or the nurse at this hospital was awesome, or vice versa, it was a negative experience. But likely your clients have been involved in your social service organizations and in your community. You likely have a city or oh goodness, it's on the tip of my tongue, the business space. They likely have a list of nonprofit organizations that are either part of the Bureau or are moving into the community. You can review their website ahead of time. If you don't have that connection, the resource, some things I usually do is I call ahead and ask them how they meet clients and what that looks like. Sometimes you have those outlier experiences. And then your second question, Kylie, was about how credible they are. Was that right?
Yeah, how to vet resources. So you identified that we go into our community, we look at nonprofits that are available. We also want to remind everyone on the call to look for professional counselors and therapists in your area. They may not be nonprofits, but they're definitely going to be something you can research as far as like a local Google search. And now the next follow-up question, Lisa, is just how do you vet them? Should you encounter that person first, visit that center before you refer?
It just depends. Some of our churches have beautiful resource lists. Catholic Charities has beautiful resource lists. If they're recommending, I likely feel safe that they're a good resource to recommend. If you have the time and space to get to know these folks and call ahead and get to know, that's a beautiful thing. The thing about the social service work that we are surrounded by is that it's constantly changing and evolving. So it's hard to stay up to trend. So one of the tactics I use is that when I have a client that is struggling with something, I pull out this resource list that might have not been updated for 6 months, and together we go through it. And I might make the phone call with the client to see what kind of services they offer and what their follow-up care is. And then, of course, any reputation they might have based on your networking experience might help as well.
That's perfect. Your first point was about recognizing our personal limitations and circumstances, and you gave some really sound advice with regard to creating your own personal board of directors. And I've heard this from you because I get to work with you all the time. But what I want to ask you to share with our webinar today is that there's a difference between your coworkers who do hold you accountable and do measure you and do weigh in on your personal growth, and your board of directors. Can you highlight a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. And so I love using metaphors. I think about our board of directors as a ladder. When you're on a ladder and you're growing and you're going up the ladder, right? There's people that you are leaving behind, perhaps, because they no longer are where you are, no longer where they are. And so maybe your coworkers are standing on different ladders at the same place as you, right? But these mentors are a couple steps ahead of you. And if you can envision their hand dipping down to you, helping pull you up outside of your own understanding, that's how I envision envision a board of directors, is people that are a little bit further down the road, maybe a lot further down the road, that can offer wisdom and insight that you haven't yet been, haven't had access to in your own growth, your own development. And so these people that might have 20 more years experience than you, maybe they're working in a different profession that they can offer insight to you. Maybe they have more life experience. Maybe they've been personally inflicted by whatever it is that you need help with, so they can provide their own personal experience. But these are all things that we want to reach up for, not over or down. And sometimes we find ourselves more comfortable, let me name it, because I am no different than you, wanting to reach down to the people so that I can be okay with my answer, or reach sideways because all we want to do is complain. Or all we want to do is kind of banter about it. And the reality is that's not going to help solve the situation. We're not going to gain more clarity or new insights until we reach up and out of our situation.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that robust answer. Just a little check-in, because we're halfway through with sharing this document. What Lisa has shared so far is the H and the O of hope. I know many of you are just joining our call. This has been placed in the chat as a document that you can download and keep. As Lisa shared in the beginning, this is a living document. So as we get better and we get smarter, this document is going to grow with us. So healing and ownership have been covered. Next, we're going to enter into purpose and excellence. Something that has come up in the chat, Lisa invited everyone to share their comments and feedback about their experience so far in the webinar. And Lisa, I wanted to share with you 2 comments. Sherry said, our clients are the best experts on their lives. And I knew you would love that comment. And then Sylvia said that she has learned to treasure her triggers because they lead to deeper healing. I thought that was really beautiful and a very optimistic way to embrace them.
Mm-hmm. So good. Thank you for sharing that. You guys impressed the heck out of me. Okay, so we're moving into purpose. There's 3 bullet points under purpose. Purpose for Support After Abortion team is that we are living out our God-given purpose through support after abortion and through the space that we serve. But this also looks like the purpose in which we are, walking out different other parts of our lives. And so we assumed that purpose could mean how we walk through abortion healing. It could mean how purposeful you are in your journey, how purposeful you are as you execute things. And so here we are as we're approaching the first bullet. Identify accurately your qualifications, level of competence, expertise, experience, training, and certification. Do not provide services that exceed competency. Okay, this is so important. You might have seen this kind of sprinkled in up until this point. We do not want this to limit what you are doing. We just want us to stay objective about who we are and what we're doing and not get out of our lane. I had a woman at a training we did last year in St. Louis come up to me afterwards, and she specifically said all the dysfunction that a client that she was serving was walking in. And she said, how do I move forward? And I said, if you don't know how to move forward, maybe you shouldn't be serving this client. And she said, what do you mean? There's nobody else that can do this work. And I said, well, it sounds like she's got 3 or 4 different areas of her life that are spinning out of control. Which area does she want to work on? Well, I don't know. She brings all of them to session. And I said, and your reason for meeting with her? Well, she called me about her abortion experience. So we went back and we said, okay, if she called you for her abortion healing needs, these other areas of her life that are spinning out of control, why are you walking into those places unqualified? And she had this mind-blowing experience that said, well, that's just because that's what she was bringing every time to session. And so I just want to enter in with that understanding that our clients do have a lot of things going on. They do have a lot of places in which their lives might be unmanageable, but we want to make sure that we are very clear about the role that we are serving in our client's life and that we are identifying our own qualifications as we go through these things and our competency. How are we managing ourselves and our journey? So that's really important. We do not ever want to provide services that are outside of our competency. That was that big question at the end of last webinar that really allowed for this to happen. We want to make sure we honor our group purpose, our objectives, timeline. We kind of talked about that a little bit, but here's a more specific. We want to make sure that we are not leading a client on, that we are very specific from the very beginning, that we don't say we're going to do one thing and then do something very different. Okay. And then the last time is we want to make sure that, or the last bullet, we want to make sure that all parties have the right to terminate us and our client at any time, and that we are not going to pursue them beyond what they want to be pursued. You know, some people say like, well, how many text messages too much? I usually say I'll text message one time, and then I'll text message a second time saying, this is the last time I'll be texting you. If I don't hear back from you, just know that I'm always here, or here's a contact for you. And then I respect that boundary and I don't reach out again. Sometimes I hear from clients, man, they kept texting me and kept texting me and kept texting me. We just want to make sure that we have a very specific guideline that we follow in that space, and that we also are willing to refer to others along the journey. Kylie, that is the end of purpose.
So in your example, you were sharing about staying in our lane. I actually have a mug to this effect. Okay. And so if our lane is abortion healing, can you talk to us more about how to recognize the signs when a client needs to begin somewhere else? So they have had an abortion, they are experiencing loss, but it keeps coming up that they're grieving a miscarriage, or they're grieving some other circumstance in their life. When do you know that that's the sign to move into another area with a different professional?
That's great. Again, we don't have to be the experts of people. They can tell us what's going on. My favorite question is to say, what do you think is most important to you right now? On a list of 1 through 5, which one's the heaviest? Where do you think you're receiving the most amount of harm? Or if one of these things could be relieved, or if one of these 5 things could be removed and relieved, what would help you the most? Those are big questions that if we ask our clients directly, they're likely going to be able to articulate what it is that they need, and that'll help determine the next steps in the journey. You know, it's not our job to go, well, they're homeless and they're living in a homeless shelter, and they're not working, and now they want to talk about their abortion healing. For all we know, this homeless shelter is the safest place they've ever been. Their life is very consistent. They've been given permission to live there for 6 months. They're on the journey to getting a job, and this abortion experience that they had has been one of the most traumatic things that they've ever experienced, and they feel like that's the next thing on their journey for healing. Another experience of a homeless shelter might be that everything else in this woman's and man's life is chaotic. Abortion is the last thing on the list. And when we ask, they tell us that, you know, I need food, I need my electric bill paid, I need these things. Well, then they let us know what's most important, but we need to ask them rather than assume.
I noticed that you're using what questions, how questions. Can you talk a little bit about why that's important?
Yeah, I love that, Kylie. I had the beautiful opportunity, if you have not had the chance to get to know our friends at the professional PCCI, Professional Christian Coaching Institute. I'm doing a little plug for them. I promise I'm not getting any reimbursement for this. But we had an opportunity to connect with their founder, Chris McCluskey. He's very, very amazing. Many of you might have already received their training. I see Deb weighing in. She's actually an advocate and graduate from there. But I had the opportunity of taking some classes there. They have a grant for people in the pregnancy center business. And then I continued on with my certification. And I learned there the difference between counseling and coaching. Counseling is a lot of the why, a lot of the roots of the conversation. This is how I've been trained. Coaching is more about the what and how questions. These are the moving forward questions. And so I've brought that training to our space as I've been equipped into letting you know that we don't need to ask why questions. That's not our space. What and how questions are very powerful. And really what our clients are needing in this abortion healing space is the what and how. What about your abortion experience has been so difficult? How does this particular incident harm you or hurt you, or reflecting on it? serve you. It just has given us a lot more language to move into what we like to call also in the pregnancy center space, motivational interviewing. Chris McCluskey does some great training in that space too, that never ask a client when they're telling you about their interest in aborting their child, why. We want to say, what have you done to really explore this? How would aborting your child hurt you or serve you or better your life, whatever these questions are, but they bring you to a new and different landing place where why questions find you back in maybe the quicksand, and that's not our space.
I want to commend Sherry. She's shared in the chat that she likes the question, what is the issue you wake up and go to bed with?
It's good. There it is, Sherry. That's
Okay.
another reason. Write that down, write any of this down, and then make it your own. That's just another way to say what is on your mind all the time.
Yeah, and Deborah Tilden and a couple of people in the chat, I just want to highlight what they're talking about, that there's actually a podcast on Spotify that they've been able to follow that gives them, nuggets of information to digest on a frequent basis. So just encourage you to check that out.
Amazing.
All right. And then the last question is that it can be really humbling what you're asking here, Lisa. I mean, you're asking me to tell you or to tell myself, where are my skills? Where is my competency, and how do I not exceed that? What is a good way for me to do this self-reflection and to recognize where my experience ends and someone else's should begin?
It's great. Many of us have taken personality tests. And so I'm going to start the most basic. If you haven't done that, I recommend it. We use the Strength Finders assessment at Support After Abortion. We also use the Enneagram at Support After Abortion. But you might have been exposed to the DISC or the Myers-Briggs, or there's a slew of personality tests. I always recommend that you take that test as quickly as you can. Answer the question and be done. Don't reflect, just keep going. The more that you do that, the more you become understanding of what are your gifts and talents if you don't already know them. But it also confirms if you do have a sense of what direction you're supposed to be going in, it gives you an even deeper sense of what that looks like. And so those are always very helpful to structure your understanding. For those of you who are faith-based here, I mean, God has clearly given you your purpose and is likely speaking through a lot of people in your life and a lot of experiences. Listen in if you haven't already. I always like to say that purpose comes from our pain often. And so those painful places in your life after you have found healing are often going to be used for a greater purpose. And so those are places that I'm mindful of on my own journey. The last thing is anything that ignites you, you should be present to. If you leave something and you feel charged by that, and you feel like that I could do that again and I could do it 50 more times, be present to that. That's often your special superpower, your special space. If it feels draining, and I don't mean that after, an 8-hour day, and not that kind of draining. I mean, if it felt like work pulling, through that situation, make sure you're mindful of that and start getting curious about where is that heaviness coming from. Speak to your mentors about that heaviness. And perhaps there's something there that you're doing or you're connected to. My team, Kylie's going to laugh. I hate the details of things, hate them. I love doing what I'm doing right now. My team is so good at the details. Kylie is so good. And she gets her superpower is the details. She gets so moved by them. Man, I could be sitting in front of a computer and feel dead after an hour of that stuff. And she just is ignited by it. So knowing what drives you is really, really valuable as you consider the question Kylie asked.
All right, on to excellence.
All right, guys, last, we're taking it home. All right. So excellence at Support After Abortion is not to be mistaken with perfection. We are not perfectionists at Support After Abortion, but excellence is that we try to strive to be the best versions of ourselves. Our work is the best outcome of ourselves. It's an extension of the best versions of ourselves. We never just kind of go, okay, this is whatever. No, we try to deliver excellence at every step. not perfection. Okay, so we have 4 bullet points. We want to hold responsibility for being aware of and setting clear, appropriate, culturally sensitive boundaries that govern interactions, physical or otherwise, avoid discrimination. And these are just your real basic ethical standards. In our space, the biggest way I see this showing up is faith and politics. And so we just want to be very, very mindful that if a pro-choice person comes into our office, that they are as welcomed as a pro-life person is welcomed. We've had a conversation about atheists. If an atheist comes to your office for help, she or he is treated in the same manner that a Protestant is going to be coming into your office. Somebody who, a Black American woman is treated the same way that an Indian man is treated. We want to make sure that we are creating a diverse experience. Let me tell you how this could be showing up in your space as ethically irresponsible. You have white women material on your shelf only, and you have nothing that reflects male healing, and you have nothing that reflects a non-faith journey. Okay, this is where most of us are limited, is that we have one curriculum. It is a faith-driven curriculum written by a white woman, and that's okay, but we don't have the supplemental material. We don't have the material for a Catholic. We don't have the resources for a male. We don't have the resources. I think you get my point. Are you culturally diverse? Are you able to, if you can't speak to a Hispanic woman or man that comes into your facility, are you able then to refer out? Do you know how to go about that? The last thing we want to do is have somebody that does not speak our language reach out to us and we can't find support for them. All right, second one, create a space of confidentiality and anonymity. We have spoken about this so many times, but we have research that shows this. More than 80% of our national research says that our clients want confidentiality and anonymity. Offering a in-person only program is not going to serve the clients that we need to reach. And so based on this research, we are putting this inside of our code of ethics as a way of helping you begin to shift your program, as the way of shift how you do your outreach. The easiest way to do this is shift your phone call line to a text line as well. Move your referral program to an email option as well. Anything where a client does not have to identify themselves. In fact, we have aliases on Instagram and Facebook reaching out to us because if their parent knew that they were reaching out, or they're afraid that if the legal system found out that they were experiencing abortion, all of these reasons, we want to make sure that we maintain a confidential and anonymous environment. We don't have to ask for first names, that we would be available to someone if just to talk, if they needed support. Okay, now eventually, if we're looking at the spectrum, we will then ask demographic information. We will then maybe perhaps meet over Zoom with video. We may perhaps meet in person, but we don't want that to be the only place that we can meet people anymore. So there's a shift for a lot of us. Third one, this is about records. We just want to elevate our experience here. We want to maintain, we want to store, and we want to destroy records appropriately. It speaks for itself here, but we felt like we wanted to add it. If we're trying to elevate who we are as abortion healing leaders, we need to be maintaining best practice standards, and that has to do with our records as well. And then the last thing, and this kind of goes along with the making sure you own your confidentiality and anonymous options, that you have an opportunity to really grow with our emerging technology, that you are trying to stay on the brink of this. We learned during our first conference at the beginning of COVID that it was a 60-year-old white woman that was attracted to our space. That has since changed greatly with medication abortion, and we have seen the Zoom option become more popular. The text line on our website is more popular. The text line on phones is more popular. We've had to adapt to the growing need of our 20-somethings and even our 30-somethings. So we want to make sure that we aren't staying stuck in our own understanding and that we're growing with the trends as well, especially when we know the statistic is so powerful. From 20 to to 29 years old is the most prevalent age group having abortions right now. And we know that with the medication abortion increasing to 80% this year, more and more people are reaching out for help right away. And we want to make sure that that right away option is exactly what they need in that moment, not something that we have been providing for the last 40 years. So that takes us to the end, and Kylie's going to enter in, and I imagine you want us to get prepared to ask other questions as well if there's time, but Kylie, take it away.
There is now something that's coming up for everyone is just recognizing that code of ethics is not just how you personally operate, but it's everything that you do. So this most recent conversation is really talked about checking in on your policies and practices, talking to your marketing communications people to make sure that the external facing communications, social media, everything is consistent with all of the language and code of ethics that we're talking about here today. Are there any other places that we would check in, Lisa, within our organization, and how we can get everyone to adopt and live these documents?
I think it's everywhere. You know, I went to Heartbeat International's website just to see what their code of ethics were. And most of their code of ethics were pertaining to pregnancy tests and ultrasounds. And so, you know, you probably need to add some of these to the work that you're doing. If you're a faith-based organization, these things might be in there, but not everything is in there. If you're a clinical practice, most things will be in here, but here again, we want to make sure we compare, and every organization should be operating by the same code of ethics. So whatever department you're working in, whatever role that you're playing, you should be signing the same code of ethics as somebody that is playing a very different role. You're muted, Kylie.
Sorry, I want to invite Deborah Tilden. Deborah, I'm calling you out. You have this beautiful example about plain glass versus stained glass, and I'd love to see you talk about that just a little bit.
Well, you know, of course, we don't always know the background of a client. So the plain glass is just, it's still speaking truth. This principle comes out of transformational leadership. And so you're still communicating the message of truth in the healing process. Stained glass signifies that faith-based, think of a church, stained glass. So when you don't have that understanding of the client's background, and unfortunately, a lot of people have sometimes been hurt in the church. So they may have a lot of walls up that keep them from wanting to go in that direction. Just like Lisa said, it's client-centric. And for myself, it's Holy Spirit led. It's like praying through some of these things that you may not really have experience or training in, but it's really listening to the client and seeing where they're at. But I love that the principle of the plain glass and stained glass. It's a very simple thought in the big scope of things.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I love you.
Christina, oh, and you just met Ivy. I'm so tickled. I got that beautiful picture of you two together. Christina Sanchez, you had a great question about whether, given our role in abortion healing, whether the board of directors that Lisa was talking about should be people who have experienced abortion. Just want to invite you to come on and talk about that question with Lisa. I'll let Lisa begin to answer it while you're coming on.
Are you unmuting? I don't want to talk over her. She's trying. I see her. Christina, while you're trying to figure that out, I'll just begin with saying that it is not my belief that everyone that helps people in the abortion healing space needs to experience abortion. I am actually helping to eradicate that understanding. I believe that we are all more alike than we are different, and that the experiences that I have had, the experiences of abortion and other divorce and infidelity and porn addiction and substance abuse, these are all experiences that live in the symptom world. They all started with roots. And most of us have very similar roots of loss of identity, loss of purpose, loss of value, being hurt by somebody that cared for us. And if we can all resonate with that understanding, we are likely able to find a space where we can walk with compassion with people who have very different symptoms, but similar roots. And so that's been my experience. Now, do I think it's important that somebody who's experienced abortion be able to add value to conversations? Absolutely. Personal experience is very valuable, but it doesn't have to be the only team of people that support you.
Got it. Okay. No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Veronica, I'd love to invite you to share your question about rapport building in anonymity and how difficult that is to do.
Thank you for calling on me, Kylie, and Lisa. Thank you so much for this wealthy webinar. I was just saying that we were discussing this recently with our abortion recovery facilitators and how some of the clients will not turn on their camera.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it is, I don't like that because I want to see them. I want to make sure it's not a plant or somebody faking, a group of people, so, and also someone in the background that could be there while we're sharing confidential information. But we can't control that, and we don't want that to be a deal breaker. So just from what you said, the need for anonymity is important to them. And so it sounds like we should adapt to that and be okay with that. Now, we do give guidelines and we have a contract they have to sign. So we definitely talk about confidentiality and respect with others' opinions and things like that. But I just appreciate what you said because it really helped us in this area.
Yeah. And we can only protect it as much as we can, and so I think that offering this virtual space has its challenges, but I love what you're saying is that you're being adaptable, even though you're uncomfortable, and that you're putting measures in place to protect yourself. That contract is gold. And so making sure that that conversation happens beforehand. I understand that you're not going to be on video, but please know that this is a very difficult space for others to enter into. And we want to make sure that these 5 things are protected. And, one of them being that we want you in a space where nobody can hear or see the other participants and that sort of thing. But then also naming that for our group members at the beginning. Listen, 3 of the members have chosen to stay off camera for now. We have asked them to not be in places where others can be there, but maybe you feel, a little concerned yourself. And so if that concerns you and you want to change your name or you want to only show your forehead or what that is, we want you to feel the ability to have that safe space as well. And it sounds like you're doing that wonderfully. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Veronica. It's something that's come up because of your questions, just to draw attention that there are also people who have struggled with that transition from in-person, because not only do they like faces, but they want to see that whole body language, in the room. And one of our facilitators said it beautifully, that transition was made easier for them because they were able to see all the screens of all the group participants at the same time, and how that leveled up their interaction because they were able to see everybody's reactions and could immediately recognize when somebody was perhaps withdrawing from a conversation or wanted to ask a question or became more engaged or passionate. So that was a pretty cool highlight when we were able to switch to virtual for some of our people. Last question, Kirk, you're on deck.
Thank you. It was more of a comment, but then Lisa covered everything that I was going to say. So I just agree that the anonymity of no camera, there are challenges. I think there's way more benefit for a person that's just too scared, maybe for lack of a better term, to reach out any other way.
You're right, Kirk. We just gave a webinar to the Heartbeat Academy last week and had a facilitator who said that even they are scared to have their camera on because they're located in Texas and they're afraid of repercussions of criminal prosecution within their group dynamic. And so sometimes it's comfortable for everyone to have their camera off. And we do need to recognize the way that laws and particular areas are being influenced right now. So I want to share with you as we close today that we have really beefed up our resource library to help you to have access to the documents that we share within our Abortion Healing Provider webinar each month. This is located under Healing Providers, Provider Training Center. You'll see a button for Resource Library. Within it, you're going to have access to documents that we've shared, flyers, graphics, and other tools that can help you to evaluate your community or to better facilitate a group and so on. So we're going to land our code of ethics. If you didn't download it in our chat, I know many of you reached out directly and I sent it to you directly too. It will live here on this document and we'll send it to you via an email and a recap of this call when we're concluded. So Lisa, final words and blessings.
Well, it's always an honor to be with each of you. I'm glad that you found this really helpful today. You continue to inspire our conversations, and our goal is to continue to elevate abortion healing as a necessary best practice for men and women who need help. And so these are the things that we are always committed to doing. And so if you have anything on your heart today that hasn't been addressed yet in our webinars, you've gone back through our website and you see something, we just want you to know that we're open to your feedback. Please feel free to email us or contact us. And I believe next month hasn't really taken shape totally, but I think we're going to do an extension of this conversation into, okay, here's the umbrella of ethics. Now, how do you put this into practice? So we'll be able to break this down in more chewable bites and have deeper conversations around that. So feeling really inspired by all of you. I thank you so much for who you are, for the parents that are getting ready to start school. Blessings to you, guardians, grandparents, for those of you who haven't done your summer vacations yet, blessings to you, and we will see you next month. Thank you for coming.